Joe Biden could not bring himself to condition or restrict U.S. military assistance to Israel or to bring the kind of pressure on Netanyahu that Donald Trump managed to do. Largely, in my judgment, flat out, it's because Biden could not free himself from his own emotional entanglements with Israel and the politics of the situation.
Well, presumably there will be another Democratic president in the future. And I don't know if you read Ben Rhodes' op-ed in the New York Times. I think it came out yesterday.
I did read it. I did read it.
So for people who didn't, he basically is saying the Democrats need to have a whole different stance towards Israel. They need to stop supporting this government. And by doing that, they'll reclaim their values and start building a better world and a stronger coalition here in the United States. And so I'm wondering what your feeling is on that, because as you were saying, there needs to be bipartisan support. It doesn't look like if the Democrats follow Ben Rhodes' road, there will be that in the future.
I mean, a lot's going to depend, I think, on what kind of government the Israelis ultimately choose to represent, and how a future Israeli government would comport itself toward the one issue that I think more than any other is driving this wedge. And right now, I don't have a lot of high expectations that the next Israeli election is going to produce anything other than a center-right government, which would be improvement. I mean, when you're in a hole, the first order of business is to stop digging. But I think an Naftali Bennett, who is extremely conservative and who probably right now has probably a better chance than any other Israeli politician of becoming the next prime minister, is going to have a view of Palestinians that are much different than Benjamin Netanyahu's. I think the annexationist policies will stop. I think it'll be a kinder and gentler approach, more functionality when it comes to reaching out to Americans, more effort to explain with some sense of humility and even remorse Israel's policies. But I think we're stuck in a groove here, and I suspect the next Democratic president is going to have to figure out a way to. Well, let me start, I guess, differently. Why wasn't Joe Biden able to do what Donald Trump was? Because Joe Biden, I think, emotionally and politically, could not detach himself from what he saw on October 7th. You watch the president give a speech on October 10th in which he talks about the black hole of loss. I had the feeling that he was conflating the trauma that the Israelis suffered with his own sense of personal tragedy in his own life. Joe Biden could not bring himself to condition or restrict U.S. military assistance to Israel or to bring the kind of pressure on Netanyahu that Donald Trump managed to do. Largely, in my judgment, flat out, it's because Biden could not free himself from his own emotional entanglements with Israel and the politics of the situation. Donald Trump had no problem freeing himself from both of those constraints. And you may, in the future, get a Democratic candidate. There was a time, I think, in the run-up to 2016, in primaries, you had 4 Democratic candidates, I believe, all using the word racist in the same proximity to Benjamin Netanyahu. That, to me, was an extraordinary data point about how Democratic politics on Israel have moved. And that was 2016. We're now 9 years later, right? And you watch the polls, you see the generational differences. You watched what happened in 2023 and 2024 on university and college campuses. And you'd have to conclude that there are now structural changes, which are going to lead to political changes. I'm old, Madeleine. I'm 76, right? I don't know what the next 10 years would bring. If you ask me what is my acid test as to when the U.S.-Israeli relationship really changes, it's when you see large numbers of Republicans and Democrats publicly elected, Democrats and Republicans, House and Senate, or in any other elected position, openly debating two questions. Number one, Israel's policies toward Palestinians, whether it's Gaza, the West Bank, Jerusalem, wherever. And number two, the nature of the U.S.-Israeli relationship. When those two questions are openly debated, pros and cons, criticisms and defense by large numbers of Republicans and Democrats, then I will believe, whatever the public polls show now, I'll believe that the institutional relationship between the U.S. and Israel will have changed. I'm hoping that wise leadership on both of our parts, because I think there are many legitimate reasons for the U.S. to support a special relationship with the state of Israel, not an exclusive relationship where we essentially allow an Israeli prime minister to hold in his hands not just Israeli interests, but American interests as well. I'm hoping for a lot of things these days over the next 4 to 8 years, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Pat Morrison, one of the hosts of America at a Crossroads. If you like this video, don't just watch. Head over to our website where you can subscribe for early access to new programs, see our upcoming schedules, and connect directly with our guests in our weekly live streams. Thank you for watching.
Well, it seems a lot of it is conditioned upon the United States supporting it militarily, which it seems unlikely to change. Once that changes, does the whole balance change?
Well, frankly, and I've said this publicly before, I think and there are Israelis who say it, that it would be a much, much, much healthier relationship between the United States and Israel if both countries, not if the United States began a conversation at some point, not to punish, and there are all kinds of ways to structure this, where U.S. military assistance to Israel could, over time, be reduced. There are any number of proposals. I think it would create a much healthier relationship for both countries.
Next week, December 10th at 5 p.m. Pacific, we will welcome the Dean of UC Berkeley School of Law, Erwin Chemerinsky, who will be in conversation with Warren Olney on the topic, The Constitution in Crisis, What's at Stake for American Democracy. And as you probably all know, Erwin Chemerinsky is one of the great constitutional law scholars in the country, so you're going to be sure to tune in and be with us.